you're going to run this with an iron fist. Is that the deal?
No, you've been out here running it with an iron fist.
Pricing. It's not that I'm withholding any information from you. If you didn't get them in your packet, that doesn't fall on me.
So it just came into question to me, why would we have an extra vote that we didn't have a voter for?
Welcome back to another Shark Show. Today we're doing a continuation of the election administrator update. And we had some very interesting things at Tuesday, March 9th court that Dave Eagle put on the agenda. But let's first go back and kind of give a quick update of how we got to this point. First of all, we have an election commission.
Yep.
The judge, county clerk, Democrat chair, Republican chair, and tax assessor all elect the position of election administrator here in Hood County.
I'm going to make a motion. Make a motion that we appoint Michelle Carew as the election administrator.
A second.
Okay. County Judge Ron Mask has made a motion to appoint Michelle Carew, second by Adrian Martin, the Democratic chair.
A third.
And Michelle Carew was elected by the judge, the Democrat chair, who seconded the judge, and then Andy Ferguson, who was a third vote. And now we have Michelle Carew as election administrator.
Yep.
And that was the very beginning. And then we ran into the first obstacle on Zuckerbucks, right?
Yeah, she'd been here about 6 weeks or so, and she put in for that grant through the Help America Vote Act, which sounds like it's coming from the government, but really that money was coming from Center for Tech and Civic Life. You can go back and watch our old video on that. And, she wanted to bring in that $29,000, which basically she would have had total autonomy to do whatever she wanted with. And the big push through that act was to get more mail-in ballots. That's what that was all about.
Right. And not only just mail-in ballots, because, a lot of people want to do that during COVID, but unsolicited mail-in ballots and hundreds of millions of dollars of Zuckerberg money and other left-leaning groups went into this.
Right, and that's where we're seeing a lot of these lawsuits coming from, is that Zuckerberg money, the Zuck bucks, and these unsolicited mail-in ballots.
Fortunately, Dave Eagle was able to stop that, so that never came to fruition, but she didn't start off on the right foot, and so far, I'm less than impressed.
Yeah, and so far, none of us are impressed. And, to top it all off, thank you to Representative Phil King out of Parker County. Representative Phil King's bill prohibits the contributions and expenditures of Joint Election Commission, County Election Commission, and county election boards, meaning no private money, no corporation, partnership, trust, or third-party money going into this. That would stop what Michelle Carew and the judge wanted, and Ron Cotton too, that free money. Remember that?
Yeah. It's free money, no strings attached. Yeah, we're seeing all these lawsuits come out of it now. So
now that brings us into the Tuesday, March 9th, 2021 Commissioner Court, agenda items 10, 11, and 12 that Commissioner Eagle placed on the agenda to talk about the elections administrator and the duties and things like that. Right, Nate?
Yeah, he put 3 items on the agenda, and it was to talk about the duties and responsibilities of the Commissioner's Court, the County Attorney, and the Elections Administrator. He was aiming that at the purchase of the voting equipment that the county just bought for $550,000, right? Through the discourse that day that they purchased that voting equipment, Michelle Carew was saying, hey, if you didn't get this contract last week, that's not my responsibility to send to you. I sent it to the county attorney, and that's that.
I didn't get any one of these contracts myself.
Well, it's my understanding that the contracts go to the county attorney for review, not to the commissioners, because it is his job to review them. So I sent them to him. I did send them whenever I sent my items to the judge's office, I included all of the contracts, all of the pricing. It's not that I'm withholding any information from you. If you didn't get them in your packet, that doesn't fall on me. So unfortunately, I don't feel that it's my position to send you every contract I have because you're not the county attorney.
And not only did she say that's not my responsibility, Nate, she made it a point to say, hey, she's in charge. She can do what she wants, basically. And, I gave it to the county attorney. Who cares that you vote on it, Commissioner Eagle and the rest of the commissioners?
And not only did Commissioner Eagle, but Commissioner Andrews didn't get the contract either. And whether it's her responsibility or not, she is entrusted with certain duties as the election administrator to do her job. And part of that job is making sure the commissioners on the court have the information they need to be able to vote on something when it comes to the election equipment that we're going to be using for elections. So it looks to me like she's trying to do a power grab here and keep certain people out of the loop on purpose.
Well, she knows she has a vote with Ron, and Jack made the motion for the Hart system. But, you go back to the same thing of Michelle being the election administrator that wants to control a, $620,000 contract and push it through court, and the citizens of Hood County will be using these machines, but she doesn't want to give everybody the information.
That's the way it seems, yeah.
So in preparation for court, seeing these things on the agenda items, Nate did an information request on some of the emails going back from Michelle Carew and other people in the state and commissioners and judge.
Yeah, so she sent an email to the judge and all the commissioners, and in this she was trying to prime them all for her opposition to sequentially numbered ballots, which under Texas statute is required. You have to start with the number 1 and you carry on sequentially from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sounds simple. She doesn't want to do that, and these machines that we purchased aren't set up to do that by factory default. That's something that we're going to have to shell out a little more money for, but it's worth it for the election integrity.
Especially after the last fiasco we've seen with the presidential election, you would think that election integrity would be at the forefront of our election administrators' mind.
So once again, the way that Judge Ron Mascale has run this court is more like a criminal court and not a court of the people. With Michelle Carew, it looks to me this packet of emails and information and certificates was all a front to put up for sequentially numbered ballots, and going to the far excessive point of bringing in Christina Atkins from the Secretary of State's office to try and reiterate what the judge and Michelle are fixing to plan. And not only that, on a lot of these issues that Christina Atkins brings up, she's telling the judge how to run Hood County. And that's wrong.
Yeah, it's funny because at first she starts trying to tell them what they should be doing, but through Dave's, questioning Commissioner Eagle, she finally admits, well, elections are decentralized, and, yes, that statute that says sequential numbering is still in place. No, we haven't repealed it, but, it's that some of that government far left pretzel logic.
Nate, not only that, if you go back, the Secretary of State, representative, employee, however you want to, place Miss Atkins in.
Activist.
It could be, and we look at these emails, and we're going to go through a couple of these, and we'll see where, that could be the case. And it's not the state's responsibility, our state employee, to come in here and tell our county what to do, yet the judge is just eating it up because he wants this to go a certain way. That's what all these emails point towards.
Right, and she even mentions in court that they don't have authority over our local elections, that they're there to offer advice if we have something go wrong in the procedures or the code, that then something needs to be reported to them. That's pretty much all they're there for. But when it comes down to how our elections are run, that is up to our local officials.
And, one of these items in here is from Keith Ingram. And the judge brings it up and says, hey, we were 100%. We had good conduct. You did a good job doing your job that you're supposed to do. Kind of like everybody gets a participation trophy, right?
Yeah, even though there were some discrepancies. Sharon Sheelander took the place of what I think should have been the county chair to step up and say, hey, there were more ballots than there were people that participated. Granted, it was in the single digits, but we've had elections in Hood County just in the last few years that have been won and lost by single digits. Every vote counts and every vote should count. And the judge was just lackadaisically brushing it off, like it was, it's only 6 votes. Dude, that could be your job.
So it just came into question to me, why would we have an extra vote that we didn't have a voter for? And why would the ENS erase some of the provincials, but not all of the provincials? So I just think it's kind of something to look into, maybe investigate.
Yeah, every legal vote counts. And I'll tell you what, here's the problem. Here's the push for sequentially numbered ballots. And your judge is mounting a criminal defense against this whole thing with Michelle and the Secretary of State. And you start seeing a pattern of who hired her, right? You go back to that.
The Democrat chair.
And the judge and Andy Ferguson. And now you have somebody coming down from the state telling the county what to do. And then she backtracks and says, wait, we're just here for advice, right?
So our office, and the way elections in Texas are structured is that it's very decentralized. Elections are decentralized. Like while our office might be the chief election officer for the state, many things are run on a county level, on a county by county basis. To that end, I would say that we have a very, very much a cooperative relationship with our counties. We work with each other to support each other in completing our obligations under the Texas Election Code.
Right, yeah, that's not our job to tell the county what to do.
Yeah, and she did that only after Commissioner Eagle started, nailing her down on a few different things.
And thanks to Sharon Sheelander once again, and you said, Nate, for coming up and saying, no, wait, there was a problem. This wasn't 100% like the judge kept saying. And if you say something long enough and repeat it enough, he believes his own interpretations of things.
Right, you say it enough, you hear it enough, maybe you start to believe it.
Thank you once again for stepping in and doing the job of what the county chair, Republican chair, ought to be doing and watching these election results and ballots and things coming in. But thank you. Nate, on this packet of emails that you had, the judge mentions Tarrant County and how they didn't want these sequentially numbered ballots because, it was a mess, it cost too much money. And, hey, their election administrator knows what's going on, yet let's use him for an example. Tell us about Mr. Hyder Garcia.
Well, he's really a controversial person after the last round of elections. In 2020, there were some pretty big discrepancies that came out of Tarrant County, which I'm sure most of our viewers are aware of. But in addition to that, Chairman of the Texas Republican Party, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, came out a while back and said, hey, this guy has ties to Smartmatic. He needs to be investigated. How did y'all hire him? This is ridiculous. This guy, it's as if there are forces at work that are trying to infiltrate our government through these elections administrators' offices and all these other organizations to take us and drag us to the left and try to turn Texas blue.
Sounds like a great example we should be following here in Hood County.
Look, Tarrant County's a mess. This is Hood County. We need to operate how Hood County does. And I get sick and tired of seeing government officials say, well, this is how they do it over here. Well, this is how they do it over here. What's the legal way to do it, and what's the way we're going to do it? Those are my questions. What people do in another county, I have no control over.
Right. There's statutes laid out in the election code that we have to follow. As long as we're following those, we're doing our job. It doesn't matter what these other counties are doing.
But according to Michelle and Hart, because the Secretary of State has certified these machines that fly right in the face of the election code, well, that's okay because the Secretary of State says it is. And it's one of those backwards deals we got going right now.
It's something we need to change.
Yeah.
And we look at some more in this packet of emails, and we see, like I said before, certificates and things like that. And the judge brings up, he just goes down the line in this because it's all preset on what they're going to do. Yeah. Once again, it's like a criminal court, and it should be the citizens' court. But in this packet is a certificate from the League of Women Voters. Yeah, another participation trophy, right? And the judge asked the Secretary of State employee, Christina Atkins, well, talk to us about the League of Women Voters. Well, I don't see the League of Women Voters in any of the election code. And Ms. Atkins, as an attorney, needs to say, Judge, that's something other that's in the code. Let's talk about something else. But what does she do?
She went up to bat for him. She talked about, oh, they're a nonpartisan organization and they just try to help people access voting.
The League of Women Voters is an organization that it's nonpartisan and historically a nonpartisan organization that does a number of things to support the elections process. They provide information on candidates. They also review county websites for with respect to election security issues, and have just been participants in the election process historically for many, many years.
It's a left-wing liberal front organization. They wrap it in this fancy name. If you go against them, you're automatically a sexist, right? Who could be against League of Women Voters? And Courtney, we've got some information on them.
Yeah, so if you go to influencewatch.org, you can pull up all kinds of different organizations there and check them out. And obviously the League of Women Voters is on there. And if you look at where they get a lot of their funding, it's from a lot of these liberal, left-leaning groups. So even though they may say they're nonpartisan, where they get their money from says otherwise. One of the foundations they get a lot of money from is George Soros, and they are also involved in anti-Trump activism. Back in the 2016 election, where President Donald Trump was elected, they issued press releases claiming that the election was rigged and that President Trump didn't really win. They were also one of the partner organizations in the Women's March on Washington, a demonstration against President Trump winning that election.
So we have George Soros, we have anti-Trump, and then we have a Secretary of State employee coming up here stating how nonpartisan they are. Yet if you look online, what Christina Atkins does, and I'm sure it's part of her job to go out and give a 101 speech on elections, but statutorily, not, every chapter of League of Women Voters, TASB, the Texas Association of School Boards. So folks, do you see where we're going with this and who's involved and who's either getting snowed like the county judge, or he seems to be getting snowed so much that he's got to be part of this blizzard of liberal socialism.
Makes you wonder.
And I remember when he was running, people brought up concerns about his being a campaign co-chair for Democrats out in Dallas and donating money to Democrat candidates. And at the time, he was able to feed us a line and say, well, I did what I had to do for my practice. And, that's just how it works over there. In hindsight, that was a load of...
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, and another thing the League of Women Voters does is they put out these voters guides, right? Which they say they're nonpartisan and they're not really pointing anybody in the right direction. But if you take one look at it, you'll see they lean way far to the left. And one of our old librarians at the time brought to the Commissioner's Court wanted to put their voters guide for the League of Women Voters in our library. Guys, these forces are at work. They're infiltrating every level of government, trying to push this stuff on our state, our county, and our country. And it's the forces of good and evil. And you can really see the battle lines being drawn on even our Commissioner's Court. You got the judge over here who's siding with this elections administrator, who's siding with this Secretary of State employee, activist, whatever you want to call her. It's very concerning and it has to stop.
Not only that, Nate, but I don't mind groups like League of Women Voters. I mean, we have rights to do what, pretty much whatever we want. In politics, you could be for Biden, you could be for Trump. Really doesn't matter to me, but don't sit up there on a podium as a state employee and give me the garbage that they're a nonpartisan group when they clearly are not. Her job is not to tell the Commissioner's Court that the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan. She should just say, time out, that's not a question for me. Do you have a question on any part of the election code? And keep that specifically to what the election code is. But she came down here under another pretense as part of this County Judge Ron Massengale, Elections Administrator Michelle Carew, and now the Secretary of State legal advisor of Christina Atkins. And now let's get into one of the contentious parts of the court when Dave Eagles says, hey, look, Judge, you're all over the place and you brought down somebody from Austin. This isn't what these agenda items are for. And of course, Dave should know he put it on the agenda. But once again, Ron Massengale has his way of running this whole court.
I read number 12, Mr. Eagle, you're out of line.
So you're gonna run this with an iron fist, is that the deal?
No, you've been out here running it with an iron fist.
So you're just going to run this with an iron fist. So Judge Massengale came back with the old, second grade playground thing of, oh no, you're running this with an iron fist. So the judge is getting very upset that all these documents he has everything set up like a criminal court again, and it's not going his way because Dave is combating it at every turn. And then when the Secretary of State employee that comes down here has to start backtracking on what she's even saying.
Yeah, Dave was combating everything the judge, Michelle, and that, Democrat activist Secretary of State employee was trying to do with what? The law, truth, and facts. Black and white.
Yeah, it's spelled out in the election code. You can't argue with that.
And then at one point, Dave just flat out says, would you read section 52.062? You can't tell me that it's not suspended by the state.
Would you mind reading Texas Election Code 52.062?
Numbering of ballots. The ballots prepared by each authority responsible for having the official ballot prepared shall be numbered consecutively, beginning with the number 1.
Now, has the Secretary of State purported to suspend that?
No, we do not suspend or waive any laws.
And that's because under Article 1 of the Texas Constitution, Section 28, it specifically states that no power of suspending laws in this state shall be exercised except by the legislature.
And she can't. So he ties it up in a bow and says basically everything she just said is wrong in statute.
Right. Well, the Secretary of State's office doesn't have the power or authority to suspend or enact laws. That's the legislator. So this statute still stands, the statute he's referring to.
Even though the Secretary of State's office certified the machines that fly in the face of 52.062.
So there's a contradiction, and even the Secretary of State employee, Christina Atkins, says, yes, there's lawsuits, there's different kind of legal actions being taken, and they don't even know what's going on. So I hope the Secretary of State's office and the legislature can clear this up. But when you see this going on, and you see lawsuits, and you see conflicts in statutes, you would think that the judge in the commissioner's court would err on the side of what's best for Hood County.
And what's legal.
Yes.
So, once again, we see this pony and circus show at the commissioner's court offer this agenda that the judge is trying to run with the election administrator. And in bottom line, regardless, we should be following what the statute says. We should be doing everything we can to restore election integrity and doing everything by the book.
And these 3 agenda items that, due to the judge's lack of ability to properly preside over the commissioner's court, they all got merged. And at the end of it, all that happened was that we were able to see where these battle lines are drawn. You've got the judge, the Democrat chair, the tax assessor collector, Andy Ferguson, the elections administrator, and this Democrat activist out of the Secretary of State's office that are all on one side saying, no, we don't want sequential ballots. Here's why. And then on the other side, you've got, right now, the way I understand it, Dave Eagle saying we need to follow the statute. Kevin Andrews, I understand, is on board with that. And even Jack Wilson's on board with that, too. At least that's what he told the Republican Executive Committee Tuesday night when they passed a resolution saying, hey, we demand sequentially numbered ballots. And thank you to the precinct chairs that were involved in that. Van Vernon, everybody voted. It was unanimous. And that was incredible. And that's going to be able to put a lot of pressure on this elections administrator to get with the program.
Right. And not only that, Nate, you summed it up really good. When we do FOIAs and we get information with just a ton of emails and things going back and forth, you could almost, it's a play-by-play of what they're going to do in court and how the judge is just strong-arming this court, bringing in somebody from Austin to speak for over a half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. Would the judge give that courtesy to any other commissioner to bring somebody in? No, he put him on the clock for 5 minutes, right?
Right.
And say, oh, your time is up. Because that's not the rebuttal that he wants to rule with. He wants to rule in favor of whatever he wants. And he's got his little circle going of, Michelle Carew and Andy Ferguson and a couple others. And it's just time to stop. The EC, great job, like you said, Nate. Unanimous on the vote for sequential ballots. Let's just keep this going. It's the most efficient and accurate and legal way to do the voting.
Guys, thank you for tuning in. As always, we invite you to go watch the full Commissioner's Court. You can find that on the Hood County, Texas YouTube page. And we do appreciate the likes, shares, subscribes on Facebook, YouTube, email. We appreciate you guys helping build Blue Shark into what it is becoming.
And if you like what we're doing, one thing you can do to help support us is to buy mugs, shirts, and hats.
And once again, this is Blue Shark, looking out for the citizens, making sure that we shine the light and get the truth out of your elected and appointed officials. Shark Show out.